Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Drawing in the Background. Okay, well, once again I did a little animation sequence. This time we see a character walking up to a chest, trying to open it. And for today's demonstration, I'm just going to show you how I designed the background for this scene. So when I did the animation, I kind of had a really quick rough, but I'm going to now take that and flush it out into a full background. So first I'm just going to work really rough just to figure out where everything should go. I don't know exactly how I want it to look. I just know that it's going to have columns, it's going to be kind of a castle feel, and we want to make sure that it works nicely with the animation that's already been done. So I figure it'd be cool to have some stairs in the background, and so I'm going to have the stairs go up and then you're going to see like a second level. And so I'm just really quickly sketching it in. I haven't even calculated where the vanishing points are yet. I'm just kind of eyeballing it at this stage. Alright, I think that's working pretty good for a sketch. So now I can take this, and I'm not going to jump right to cleanup. I think for this environment it's a little more complicated, so I'm probably going to do a rough stage to just kind of flush out some of the structure a little bit. I'll just run lines off my sketch until I figure out where they hit the eye level, and that's where I can place my vanishing points. So now that I know where those vanishing points should go, then I can go in with some nice lines and flip it for the other side. I like to make it a different color so I don't get confused on if it's the right or left vanishing point. Cool, and now we've kind of established a general eye level, and I've noticed the animation now feels a little bit off, so I'm just going to try to skew it so that she maintains a consistent eye level throughout. And what I'm doing here is I'm duplicating her and I'm putting her throughout the background at the proper eye level so that I can kind of get a sense for the space with some of the background details. And that'll be a good guide as I'm sketching this out, just to make sure that the scale makes sense. Alright, now I'm just going to go in and start to flush out some of these details a little bit more. The nice thing with columns is once you kind of get one to work, I can then copy and paste that throughout. So if I duplicate it and then using the vanishing points, I can scale it and move it all around the background so that it feels like they're placed where they're lined up nicely. You want to resolve as much of this kind of stuff in this kind of rough stage as you can, because once we start to get into cleanup, then you're going to be committing to your lines. And at this stage, we can just be really rough with it and move things around and try things out. So it's really good to try to solve as many problems as you can at this rough stage. Here I'm drawing in the stairs. Now eventually I'll calculate the slopes for these stairs, but at this point I'm just kind of eyeballing it and seeing what looks right, and then I can always figure out the perspective when I do the cleanup. This is also the stage where I don't know exactly how I want it to look. I'm just kind of trying things out, moving things around, erasing things, and looking at reference while I'm doing it to try to figure out how I want it to all look before I commit to a cleanup. I fussed with those columns a lot throughout this entire piece. Just wasn't quite sure how I wanted to approach them, but I knew I wanted something there. Alright, now that that's working pretty good, I'm going to turn it blue, lighten the opacity, and draw on top of it with my cleanup. Alright, so I'm going to start with the most complicated part of this background, because once I figure out these stairs, I can kind of adjust everything else to fit around them. But trying to fit stairs into an already mostly finished background can get kind of tricky, because the stairs will always bring up more complicated problems that you'll have to solve. So in general, with a background like this, I'm always going to start with that really difficult thing to draw. But now what I'm doing is I like the angles of the rough, so now I'm projecting that up to where my slope vanishing point is, which is always going to be above one of your vanishing points. And now I have a series of lines I can reference so that I can make sure that that stair is following the correct slope vanishing point. And with stairs, I've seen different people do different ways, but I like to do it where I figure out kind of that edge silhouette, because once I know that edge and how that works, it's really easy to project the horizontals. The really important thing with stairs is if it's below your eye level, you're going to see the top plane of the stairs, and if it's above your eye level, you'll only see the sides. So it's kind of a good visual cue for, sketching in stairs. But they are a pain just to to get them all to feel like they're consistently sized and getting the perspective to go in the right direction. And I always like to make a little lip on them. Luckily with architecture, a lot of times you can just copy and paste elements you've done, stretch them, and then kind of erase and fix areas. So that way all the pillars, for the most part, feel like they belong. And at this stage, there's also a lot of layers because I want to keep things so that I can go back and edit, because as I'm building them, I'm realizing areas that are incorrect and I'm having to go back and adjust them and go back and forth. It's kind of like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But that's actually looking pretty good. So I'm going to duplicate that. It's not going to fit perfectly with the slope, but I can kind of stretch it and fix it, and I think that'll be good enough, since most of that right banister is going to be blocked by that foreground pillar anyways. I think we can get away with that. Cool. Now I'm projecting that top banister. I did the hardest part though, getting those front stairs to look right. The particular style I'm trying to go for with this kind of is reminiscent of like an old hand-drawn pencil style, and so I may use straight lines to figure out exactly how the line should look, but then I go and I kind of mess them up. Or with these little arches, I'll draw them in individually just so they don't look all the same. In another style that was a little bit more technical, I might just draw one and copy and paste it so they're all the same, but for this style, it kind of looks good if there's a little bit of nuance between each mark. And then I can use the warp tool to make sure that they're pretty close. So now I'm trying to figure out this other stair. So this other stair is going to go to a new slope line, and it's going to intersect with above the vanishing point on the left. And then we can project a bunch of lines down. That's going to tell us how to line up that back stair to be in the correct perspective. Once we get on these, I'm drawing each arch by hand and then kind of warping them to get them pretty close, but I want them to be a little bit different so it feels like it's hand drawn. And then draw behind them so it looks like they have some thickness to them. Alright, and now for these stairs. Now these stairs are a lot easier because they're above the eye level, so we're not going to see the top surface of the stair at all. All we have to worry about is getting that side to look believable. Okay, now for those pillars. So I'm basically drawing through to the ground to kind of figure out the angle that these support arches would be, because I want one on each side. And so that's kind of what that pink draw through line is. Still not exactly sure how I want to design them. I keep going back and forth with a couple different looks. And I'm working really rough, so it's almost like reverting back to a rough just for this element. And then once I figure it out, I can draw on top of it. I think that's getting closer. Cool, and then once we figure that, we just have to fill in some of those bricks. Remember when drawing bricks on something like this, it's just visualize it as a series of ellipses, and then the bricks should all kind of line up to the ellipses. This is just kind of the first pass for these bricks. I think I'm going to need to adjust them quite a bit. At some point, I need to start masking things in if I have too many things in front of other things, so I always find it easier to matte things out with kind of a crazy color and then make it whatever grayscale color it is. Cool, now I can use this as a model and basically copy and paste it. Now I don't want the bricks to be the same on every single pillar. That's going to look weird, and so it's going to be kind of a placeholder. I'm going to then go in and have to redraw elements of each of these pillars, but it's a good way to get it pretty close. And at this stage I have to kind of start organizing my layers a little bit better and matting behind the stairs, because some of the columns are in front of the stairs and then some of the columns need to be behind the stairs. So it's always good to try to keep your layers as organized as possible, so when you do need to go in and kind of rearrange them, you can. Alright, so I just copied one for the foreground. That's definitely way too blurry, so I'm going to need to redraw that. And now that I have my layers organized, I can start kind of drawing more through these columns to block out the rest of the background. Kind of went back and forth on how to handle the columns, but I think I want to block off the ceiling so that we don't see the top of the stairs. There we go, and now let's do this one. And you'll see that I'm purposely making the bricks look a little bit different so they don't all feel like they're just duplicates. And then use the warp tool. All right, let's draw out this front column, make the lines a little bit cleaner. And now I'm just drawing in all the stuff underneath that balcony. So there's a table with some stuff on it. Alright, so what I decided to do here is move that last column. Even though how I had them, they were evenly spaced, which would be correct for probably how something like this would be built. I wanted to be able to see that last column, and so I just am going to kind of cheat it so that we can see it on the edge of the frame. I think that'll look better. So, and as a result, I just have to fix up some of the ceiling details. Alright, and then we just need to fill some details in on that kind of back wall. We can keep it really simple just so that it looks like there's something back there. Okay, and then draw on those torches. Now I did torches that were animated on the previous background, so I'm probably going to try to match those as close as possible. And I'm not going to worry too much about the actual flame on this because the flame part will be an animation that I hopefully can just copy and paste over into this. Alright, and now for the floor. So I remember there's some kind of rug here. I think that'll be a nice visual element just to break up the floor a little bit. So let's add that in. And then kind of like with the last background, just throw in some random kind of squarish looking stone tiles for the floor. I don't want to draw on every single tile, but just enough so that it feels like there's enough, if that makes sense. So I end up drawing some and then erasing them and then maybe drawing them a little bit differently or moving them. You kind of just put it down and then your brain will tell you if it's right or not. Yeah, I never ended up redrawing that spider web, so this is a good chance. It was still a little bit too large of a brush. Cool, I think that looks a lot better. I'm gonna warp it into place. Oh, and we can't forget our chest. I kind of saved this for last because it's almost like a prop since it's gonna open. But we're kind of constrained on the size and location because it needs to hook up to the character. Alright, that's a good rough, so we can just start sketching it in now. And now if you remember, the top of the chest actually opens up, so the top of the chest is going to be a separate item that's going to be actually animated, and then the bottom part of the chest we're going to be able to see what's inside of it. So we're actually drawing under the top right now. Cool, that looks pretty good. And I would show you the process of me adding in the tone for the rest of it, but my computer crashed and I lost the video recording file. So we'll have to end it here. So let's take one last look at the final result with our character in there. Boom, she's the chest. Tries to open it, reaches around, pulls it open. Cool. Well, that sums it all up. Thanks so much for watching and have a great week.